Giancana's claims that the mob murdered Marilyn Monroe and was involved in JFK's assassination.
Fascinating stuff. The untimely death of actress Marilyn Monroe almost 30 years ago was officially pronounced a probable suicide. But an explosive biography of underworld kingpin Sam Giancana claims the mob boss murdered Monroe at the request of the CIA. Today's Inside Story relates another explosive chapter from the new book, Double Cross. Blonde bombshell Marilyn Monroe's death in 1962 of an overdose of barbiturates was ruled a probable suicide. Now the shocking claim has come out that her death was a mob hit ordered by the CIA. In the book Double Cross, the story of Chicago gangster Sam Mooney Giancana, written by his brother Chuck and godson Sam, Marilyn Monroe is depicted as having scandalous affairs with John and Robert Kennedy and having access to information damaging to the CIA. According to nephew Sam Giancana, the mob and the government both had Monroe under surveillance.
Everyone was watching her because she was perhaps a loaded gun waiting to go off. Well, once she decided that she was going to go public, the CIA said, we cannot have her do that. And the CIA then requested that Marilyn Monroe be eliminated. And Sam Giancana accepted the contract to kill Marilyn Monroe.
No comment.
Giancana's relationship to the CIA goes back to 1960 when they asked him to kill Fidel Castro. According to the book, Giancana had men try to poison Castro, but the Cuban leader had all his food and drink sampled by political prisoners. Even though those attempts were unsuccessful, the book claims the mobster's ties to the CIA continued to grow, and the CIA called him in to kill Monroe. At the same time, Giancana hoped to embarrass Monroe's lover, Bobby Kennedy, the Attorney General, who was hounding Giancana and the mob. Giancana states that he sent his assassins to Monroe's house. They waited until she was alone.
They taped her mouth and inserted a doctored Nembutal suppository.
The book states the suppository was from the same chemist who'd concocted the poison for the failed Castro attempts. This time, the dose was lethal.
A suppository was very fast-acting, like an injection. There was no traces of that sedative suppository. So it was a well-designed method of killing Marilyn Monroe.
The book claims that Giancana did get evidence of Bobby Kennedy coming to Monroe's house before the murder, but that the whole conspiracy was covered up by the government so quickly that his scheme to embarrass Kennedy failed. But the Giancanas stand by their story, pointing to a long history of mob and CIA involvement with Monroe. According to the book, Monroe owed her superstar career to the mob, who helped her when she was a rising star.
Johnny Roselli saw her, Johnny Roselli being a liaison from Chicago that reported directly to Mooney. They saw her, thought that she obviously had great potential, and would invest in promoting her career behind the scenes.
The book also claims that the CIA used Monroe as a sexual pawn in their dealings with foreign leaders.
She could be used to compromise world leaders, specifically Sukarno of Indonesia. They used Marilyn Monroe to get him in a compromising position to make sure that he did what the CIA wanted him to do.
Monroe's sexual activities even extended to Mooney Giancana himself. Their love encounter occurred at the Cal Neva Lodge at Lake Tahoe. Mooney describes her, quote, draped nude across her bed, running her hands enticingly along her thighs, end quote.
He told my father specifically that he had slept with her on more than one occasion, and there's no reason to believe otherwise.
This story is backed up by former FBI agent Bill Romer, who had Giancana's office bugged at the time.
We listened to him as he talked to Roselli, talking about how he had had sex at Lake Tahoe on the weekend before she died.
The Giancanas say this is one of the saddest stories they've uncovered in their research because Monroe was merely an unwitting political and sexual toy.
She became the quintessential victim, and as many tragedies as we discuss in Double Cross, I think she is probably the most tragic situation.